In this video, we're going to see how much faster I made this entry-level, not bike, but it is in the entry-level BMC Teammachine range, purely from changing the tyres and the tubes. Now, to bring you up to speed, if you didn't catch the first video in this series, let me give you the 15-second rundown. The whole idea of this project is to see if we can get this entry-level BMC Teammachine SLR Five, currently valued at $3,599 USD, which I'm labeling the Silver Fox, to this top of the range BMC Teammachine SLR01 Two, currently valued at $10,399 USD, which I've labeled the Superbike, without blowing the bank. Now, in the first video in this series, somebody dropped a comment, "Get off the internet, you dickhead," which I kind of enjoyed, thank you, Dwayne. I then scrolled down further and found this comment: "Why BMC paid me to promote cheaper versions of their overpriced bikes to sell more bikes." Now, please know up front, if you're unaware, while BMC don't pay me in
cash.
There's no cash here.
That's right, there is no cash here for this video or any video relating to BMC for that matter. However, they do provide a bike to the channel every year. They give me the bike, so I can choose to sell that bike after 12 months and I can make some
cash
from that. So that is my relationship with BMC. But as I said in the original video, I feel this series is transferable across any brand, and for this particular video, which is not sponsored by anyone, this all came about from another comment, upgrading the tyres and tubes to see the difference. Many of you seem to like that comment, so much so that let's make a video about it with 5 separate speed tests. But first, and I almost made a separate video about this situation, in the first video in this series, I tested the Superbike versus the Silver Fox, both up a local 1.5 kilometre closed road climb at 350 watts, with almost the same wind conditions and identical power meters using the Asioma power pedals. I got the exact same times and speed. As I said in the previous video, you can pick holes in my speed tests. I get that, I pick holes in them myself. But if one thing has been true over the past 3.5 years now of doing these tests, one thing that has remained true is the faster bike always wins, particularly up the closed road climb every time.
60% of the time, it works every time.
But with this situation, to have roughly a 2 kilogram heavier, lower tiered carbon bike with average wheels, cheap tyres and some fat old school tubes, inner tubes, so 1990s, equal to the Superbike, it just didn't make sense. Now, roughly a week after that video went live, someone dropped a comment which for the life of me, I can't find. Maybe I dreamt it, and it was something to do with the drive chain. Was one drive chain clean and was the other one dirty? That's very interesting. So I went back and looked at the footage, and this unknown identity seems to be onto something here. The Silver Fox is relatively new. While I had ridden it close to 1,000 kilometers before that video, it was all in Adelaide at the Tour Down Under, dry conditions, no rain. Whereas the Superbike has been copping the horrific conditions we've had here on the Sunshine Coast. Wet roads, dirt, muck for months. And to be honest, I'm not great at keeping my drive chain super polished, especially when you have day after day, week after week of rain. So ultimately, and frustratingly, because these tests are very time consuming, I realize I need to go back and do the tests again. And before that, I need to get to work and scrub both drive chains so they're equally as clean as each other. I mean, I took both cassettes off and scrubbed those rings individually. In between cleaning the drive chains, I needed a bit of a rest, so I went to my local bike shop and I bought 2 latex tubes for 25 Aussie dollars a piece. You see, reading more comments under that original video, people seem to be really pushing for latex, and it kind of makes sense. I did a bit of research on the internet and found out that latex rubber is a reliable choice for preventing pregnancies and STIs. I continue to do my research. It also has an incredible ability to conform and adapt to bumps, making it the best for rolling resistance and most likely overall speed, despite being a touch heavier than the thermoplastic options. With the ultimate idea being, after I retest both bikes with clean drive chains, I would change the tyres and tubes on the Silver Fox and do the test runs all over again. The tyres and tubes I am upgrading the Silver Fox to are these. Vittoria Corsa Pro 26mm clincher tyres, the same tyres that are on the Superbike. And let me be clear why I'm using the Vittorias. They're not a channel sponsor, they're not paying me for this video, they've never paid me before.
Cash.
But they did provide 5 of their tyres for a hub shootout I did last year. So I have quite a few of their tyres still lying around. So I'm back at my testing stomping ground. It is a magnificent morning. The kookaburras are laughing, the kangaroos are boxing the shit out of each other, and there is literally no wind, and I'm off again to test both bikes. At the same wattage, just a touch over 350 watts today up the closed road climb due to where I hit my lap time. With clean drivetrains, and as you will see, the Superbike is 3 seconds faster up the 1.5 kilometre closed road climb. This, my friends, is another compelling data point to keep your drivetrains nice and clean. 3 seconds on a 3.5 minute climb is pretty significant, and all you have to do is, or all I have to do is be a little bit more attentive. The only other test that I thought was worth mentioning here where I used my drivetrain in the original test was up the steeper climb at 300 watts, but by the time I'd gotten to that run, some light wind had arisen, and clearly that affected the run as the wind was pushing up the hill. As we went from originally having a 9-second gap in favour of the Superbike to only a 4-second gap. Now, often when I do these tests on a super low wind morning, when the wind pops up for a little bit, it tends to go away, and that's what I was hoping for as I attempted to change the tyres and tubes on the Silver Fox. What I hadn't foreseen or realised is how ridiculously challenging it would be to get the stock Vittoria Rubino tyres off the Mavic Pro disc rims, and then get the Vittoria Corsa tyres on with the new latex tubes. I mean, a local that I know actually saw me struggling, and he came up to me and offered some help.
So you've just had to come help me? How hard was that?
That was ridiculous.
So unfortunately we lost a lot of time here, and I also busted one of the latex tubes, meaning
One busted latex, a tubolito, and we've got a latex on the rear.
random I know, but this is real world stuff. And at the end of the day, I don't think there's going to be a huge difference between a thermoplastic and a latex tube, particularly at the front. You can let me know below. And of course, this did make the Silver Fox lose over 100 grams of weight. So I take off and head to the start line of the closed road climb, where I always stop as I do a standing start, and I check my wind app. And as you can see from this screenshot I take before each run, the wind has picked up. It's bloody frustrating. As a result of the wind picking up, with an 11 kilometers per hour wind advantage up the hill, the Silver Fox now rips it up the closed road climb like 4 to 5 seconds faster than the Superbike. As a result of that wind, it's faster up the steeper climb too at 300 watts by 5 seconds, and gets eaten alive on the descent by 14 seconds over the Superbike as the wind is pushing up the hill as discussed. The wind is bloody annoying, I get that, but this was literally the best day I'd had in weeks to complete these tests, and I still feel it shows that changing the tyres and tubes has had a big impact. But the wind, it's interfered. Later that evening, I went back to the criterium track to complete the spin down I'd completed in the original video, which would have obviously been unaffected by the dirty drivetrain. This is where I roll down one of the hills of the crit track and see how far the bike goes without me pedaling at all, ×2 runs on each bike, holding the same line and in the same position. Last time the Superbike had a 40-metre advantage over roughly 500 metres of rolling. This time, with the tube and tyre upgrade, just 13 metres difference. That's a big one. So I guess if you're like me, you might be feeling a little frustrated that we don't have a great comparison for the main speed tests. We know it's over 100 grams lighter, and we also know that it rolls a lot better in a spin down. So I'm looking at the wind and rain forecast over the next few weeks, and it's not looking good. It's not viable for me to go out and do those tests again for at least a couple of weeks. And at the end of the day, I need to move forward. So what I did a few mornings ago is I woke up and looked at the wind forecast, and it was better than I anticipated. It was blowing 5 kilometers per hour with gusts of 7. So I quickly rode to my local criterium track, which I can get to in 5 minutes. I take the Silver Fox as the first bike, and I do 6 laps. On this crit track, which is 940 meters in length with a small descent and a climb during, and I'm holding the inside line at a 250 watt average. I come home, put the power meter pedals on the superbike, check the wind app, the wind is still the same, perfect, off I go again. For 6 laps on the superbike at a 250 watt average. And as you can see, the superbike is on average 4.5 seconds faster than the Silver Fox with the upgraded tubes and tires. Now I am fully aware this now leaves some unanswered questions because you're like, okay, well that's great, but what was the difference between the superbike and the original Silver Fox before you upgraded the tubes and tires? I haven't done those tests yet, but I will, along with all other tests again on a fully upgraded Silver Fox, which according to you, I'm allowed to spend 2,000 USD. And I will ensure it is the lowest of the low wind days where there's no interference at all. And I'm optimistic we'll get some of those days moving into autumn and winter away from a ridiculous summer period that we've had. If you've gotten value out of this video today, please don't forget to give it a like. Helps the channel out, greatly appreciated. And I'll catch you in the next one.